what you see here is a printout of the needs analysis report I sent to the oil company, to the regional project manager. So this was a document I used to do my project costing. You'll see the date right at the top there, 2008, October 22nd. All right, so it was the day after we had a meeting in their office. So this was the document I used to kind of summarize my findings and my recommendations to them, okay, based on what they said the problems they were facing were. And so I spelled out the deliverables based on my discussion and my understanding of what they wanted and what I believed could be other things they could have done for them. So I'm going to be explaining in a few minutes, in a few seconds after this clip ends, exactly how this document was prepared, the thinking that went into it, how it's useful for project costing, and how you can use it as a powerful negotiation tool, and also something that can be used to make a compelling offer to a prospective client. I do it a lot. I use needs analysis a lot. I actually charge people money to. I actually get paid to do the needs analysis, and it's the money that people pay me for that is actually deductible from the actual project fee if they choose to sign up with me. Other than that, they take the report and they can work with it if they want. I'm going to explain how this document works now. Like I said, it's called a needs analysis report. This format you see here is similar to the format I also use for a document called the functional requirement specification. When I'm going to develop an application for a client, it's this kind of format that I use to spell out exactly what, based on this needs analysis, for instance, will be used to generate an FRS, a functional requirement specification, in which I spell out exactly the deliverables in terms of features and functionality that are going to be in the actual application that the client will be given. So of course, then the client has to sign it off. We both agree, we take it off and say, okay, these are all the things we've agreed, so that the client can kind of check it off as I progress until everything in the software reflects what exactly is in the FRS. And so we agree that, okay, job completed, and then we sign it off and he makes my whatever balance payment needs to be paid or whatever, or close out the job. So, but the needs analysis happens first of all. Generally, this is the way I operate. When I get contacted by a client, we have an interaction. It could be on phone. It depends. If it's a remote client, then of course we discuss on phone. We will do a video call or whatever. But we send me whatever relevant documents and information. I have a questionnaire I send to them, and I also call them up typically to discuss with them, and as I said, ask some questions that will enable me to arrive at an accurate understanding of what the needs are in terms of the job to be delivered. So what happened was, as you know from the story, there's a preceding video in which I talk about the fact that I was invited by this oil company. So what you're seeing on your screen is what I've done is I've reproduced this analysis report. The preceding video, this short clip before this one you're watching right now, in this same video, there was a little clip. You saw me holding the paper in my hand. I actually had to go and look for it in my files. I never thought I still had it. So you saw that piece of paper. It's looking a bit aged, but the information there is still very legible. So what I've done here is to reproduce it in Excel, because that was actually produced from Excel, but I don't have that spreadsheet anymore. And then I've kind of removed some of the information, contact details for the key people that I was interacting with, because I want to give them privacy. There's no point mentioning their full names and all that. But if anybody wishes to verify whether everything I've said here is true, just reach out to me. My contact details are on screen. Reach out to me and I'll provide more than enough proof for you to know that this actually happened. All right, but these people deserve to have their privacy protected, so that's why I've removed their contact details. But those are just the preceding parts of most of them are there. Okay, so you will see there I've said the needs analysis, the meeting outcome. In summary, is there. What I was just saying was that they want the finance department. I met with a gentleman called Ayo. They wanted me to, they had got me to review and audit, kind of do a preliminary audit of a multi-sheet workbook where I was being used for tax computation, and they were saying they wanted me to make it more user-friendly. All right, so the details of that in terms of what I then proposed to them will be deliverables and what follows. So this is the report based on the analysis of their needs that I did. Okay, like I said, this document can make it easy for you to kind of present your negotiation more effectively, so that when you're going to talk about your fees, you will be able to kind of point to deliverables that you can attach a monetary value to, to kind of in terms of estimation of the value you can add to them. Of course, it will be based on your proper analysis and understanding of the needs of the company and the importance of this particular activity to them. All right, so you see there that I said summary of finding. We found that data entry accuracy, report output accuracy, and speed of data entry and report generation are areas where value can be added in terms of optimization and automation. And then I said, as stated during the meeting, our purpose is to enhance the workbook in a way that empowers the client to update it faster and with minimal effort, making quicker and more reliable decision making based on the workbook's report output a constant reality. That's explanatory there. But let me go into the specifics. All right. So identified issue and need, and then the proposed alternative. So you see just below that yellow line, the first item there, the first deliverable, project priority. So this was a need, of course, with an implication that there will be a solution to it. So that's deliverable. So project priority based on Frank's briefing. Frank was the regional project manager, the person that actually contacted me the first time and brought me into the company. So he had told me, okay, that this was their major need. Now he was talking to me as a senior manager, and that's the person you listen to. That's the person that takes the decision. That's the person that can authorize payment to you, and that's also the person that decides what the other people are going to do. So no matter what they tell you, he has the final say. So whatever he says to you is what you should consider your primary deliverable. So he told me the current worksheet layout, right, and design for the data entry and report generation interface were too confusing. Okay, so then the deliverable was for modifications to be made by me to ensure that there was easy flow and logic that will enhance understanding of how the various interfaces related to one another by the average user. So because they were thinking that from their assessment of it, it wasn't easy for the average person to just sit in front of the system and look at that spreadsheet, that workbook, and make sense of what was supposed to happen, how to use it. It was not intuitive enough. All right, so that was something I had to change. Now you can imagine that potentially that could be subjective, but to a great extent, there are ways to go about this thing that you get to a point, you make the thing. There's nobody that will be able to argue that it's understandable. So I had a background in which I had to deal with Nigerian users that were not interested at all in having you do something to a point for them where they would then do it by themselves. They wanted everything done for them, and they wanted it to be as simple as possible. And many of them had employees that I had to deal with who were not even willing to think at all. So you had to make it literally what I used to call my applications dummy proof. That's novice proof, dummy proof, without any intention to insult anybody. Because the idea was, look, even if this staff of yours did not attend any schooling, has never done anything for, but so long as the staff has used a mobile phone, no matter how basic, that individual will be able to use my applications. So I called my applications dummy proof. The second deliverable there, simplifying data entry interfaces. This was mentioned by the young man who was the assistant to the head of the finance unit that I was talking with. So Ayo, he worksheet interfaces where data is to be entered is to be concentrated into fewer, if possible, one central work area to facilitate quicker and easier posting by the users. Again, you can see what I'm done here. Frank had told me what he wanted. Ayo had mentioned something else, because now you see, Frank was talking from the managerial point of view as a top level decision maker, as a senior manager. So he is thinking strategically, right? Like, okay, this workbook, is too confusing, blah blah. Why? Because as a decision maker, as a senior person, he doesn't have time. So he wants something that he can give to probably his fellow senior manager, and he can grab it within a few seconds. Not something that has to start going for training of 1 month to learn of 1 week. So, but Ayo is the user. He was one of those that were going to actually sit down, interact with the system, and he was looking at how long will it take me to do this before I go back to my other jobs. So he was looking at what could enable him to make the entries into the system and get whatever output he needed to get from it as fast as possible. So what happened was there were so many different worksheets in the workbook that needed to have some updates done to them in different places. So you really, first of all, had to really understand the layout of all the different worksheets, know exactly what column and what row to go to, what intersection of column and row to go to, and all of that. And that was not going to be something easy. And it made the user so prone to making errors. So I told him that there was a possibility of making all the entries come into a particular spreadsheet, even though they will be going into different spreadsheet destinations, but they will all be done from one screen, one spreadsheet interface. because that's the optimal way to design worksheets. You design in such a way that you separate the data entry spreadsheet from the interfaces that need to generate reports. That way, you don't type over formulas, and you also don't have to crawl all over the place looking for the right place to post your value. You would have a spreadsheet designed in a way that the labels on the rows and columns allow you to quickly narrow down to the place where you need to make your entry, and it will automatically appear in the destination worksheet location. So that's what that second need was about there. Okay, then I had something I called the addition, because those are the two that I was told were the key needs, and they were big jobs already as it was at that time. So, but in the course of interacting with the workbook and discussing with them, I identified some additional needs. So I threw them in. I said the following additional needs identified during the meeting, which, if addressed in the manner we propose below, would add major value to the process of using the tax computation workbook. So this was me coming up with extra value. Remember what I said, when you do a needs analysis and you do a report of this kind, you can actually use it to sell yourself and make your requests in terms of the negotiation, the value you negotiate to be paid, more convincing, more compelling. You just basically use it to justify getting paid whatever it is you're going to say you want to get paid, and hopefully you know how to do your costing, you know how to do your valuation of what you're going to do, and hopefully you're not going to be using how do I put it now, saying you're just working based on just time and selling your time only. You will be able to just strike an intelligent balance between measuring the time you're going to spend doing it and trying to cost it according to time you're going to invest, as well as also looking at the value that you add to them and being able to cost it according to the value you're going to add to them as well. So I do value pricing. I don't do time-based pricing. I don't sell my time for money. I do value pricing, but I strike an intelligent balance between both so that the client is able to kind of relate to it. All right, so the item, the extra need I pointed out, there was source of data entry. I said, since most posting is done using data printed out from other computerized systems, e.g., that was on the software they mentioned they use SAP. The potential for avoidable user data entry errors, I mentioned that already. So I was talking about automatically retrieving the needed data from other software. A lot of this software have the facility that allows them to export the data, selected data. Maybe you choose a body of data you want by selecting certain options in checkboxes and all that, and then you export it in maybe as a CSV file or as a TXT file or as an Excel file, a simple Excel file. So then what happens is that they are put somewhere on servers. Okay, some of them become orphans, but if you create an application that can retrieve, you can actually create an application that can retrieve those the data that's exported from such software and import them automatically into its own interface for it to be automatically using data computation, then you can make it easy for yourself. So what was happening is that they were taking data from such software, okay, and then they were now punching it in again into this particular spreadsheet application. And I made the point that there was a way we could automate it, so long as they would tell me they could export in a format that would be consistent. The application could be modified to import whatever is exported from those software in line with the format that has agreed, and it will just bring it into the spreadsheet, and everything will just sit right. So they wouldn't have to be the one to manually make the entries, so long as the entries they make or they export from the other end into the intermediate file are in line with the format agreed. So they were interested in that. It was not something they were familiar with, but I told them it was possible based on what I'd done for several other clients before. Then another item I brought up was making data entry quick, easier, and more accurate. I said routine data entry where users have to do it can bring overtime. Okay, increasing the possibility. You don't want staff staying over unnecessarily if there's a way you can avoid it. You automate the whole thing once. The staff does not have to take so long to make the entries, and therefore does not need to come and work all over the weekend and still collect overtime payment and all that. That's what I was getting at there. And I think even the staff themselves were happy to hear that they were not so keen, overtime or no overtime, payment or no payment. They didn't want to come and spend extra hours or come over the weekend. So automated custom data entry forms, which eliminate the need to navigate from cell to cell, in addition to having built-in data validation, is a proposed alternative. So this was something I was talking about using. You see some of my software, you see these floating forms, and you see that when you try to make a wrong entry into a cell, if the cell is supposed to take numbers, digits, okay, numeric values, and then you are trying to type a letter into it, it will go red, throw an error, give you a message prompt, and you have to correct your entry. So it doesn't allow you to just post whatever you like into the column and create problems that you prefer hard to resolve. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Then also these automatic forms help the user to make entries into multiple cells at once, without having to crawl all over the spreadsheet, scrolling to the left, scrolling to the right, or scrolling up and down. You just stay right on the form, and every entry you're making, even row by row, will just be happening from the form. So that's another thing I was offering to do for them. They were called modeless data entry forms. Then easier and quicker navigation between worksheets. Okay, this was had to do with the fact that this thing had honestly about 30 worksheets. It was crazy. I've never seen anything as big as that before in my life. Even though I've been sleeping on spreadsheets for over a decade and a half at that time, or a decade. So I was just thinking to myself, wow, who did this? But to be fair to him, the person that did it was clear he had been doing a good job with it. But I said, for the people who didn't build it, they didn't know their way around. I told them that they need what is called a switchboard, a navigation switchboard, a worksheet navigation switchboard, which is a floating form that has buttons on it, command buttons on it that you click, that enables you to go to different worksheets. So they are labeled. You don't have to wonder which one is which. The 30 worksheets, there will even be drop menus on the float navigation switchboard, so that you don't have too many tabs, and you'll be able to just click the name of the worksheet you want to go to, which will actually be using a descriptive label. So I did that as well. I put that in, and they were interested in it, so they wanted that as well. Now, then I said, next steps. The first thing, decisions. You will need to decide if you like to adopt the proposed alternatives to the additional needs, which is 2 to 5. Okay, after which it's expected you will want to agree a date for project takeoff. So remember, I was sending them this report. This is a report based on the meeting we had. So I was telling them, this is what I've seen, this is what I think we should do, this is what I recommend. And okay, next step will be, do you agree? Are you interested? So I put that first item there, decisions. Second, I said estimated project duration. I had to give them an idea of how long I thought it would take, depending on what they adopted from my proposals. So I said, based on workbook audited and reviewed with IO, this project will take 30 to 40 working days. And I was talking based on the assumption that they will accept everything I had said, items 1 to 5. So of course, if they accepted less, that means it will take even a shorter period of time, ideally. But generally, I never make offers to deliver earlier than 20 working days. That's the standard minimum that I do. I might deliver earlier, but that is what I offer to do. That way, I will only be held to that standard that, okay, 20 working days, we expect you to deliver, not earlier. But if I deliver earlier, that would just be like icing on the cake. All right, so this estimate is made on the assumption that we will have ready access to the needed resource persons familiar with the workbook to guide us. And you can imagine that's a no-brainer. If the person that's going to help me make sense of what the workbook is supposed to do is not around, there's no way I can build it. It's not just because I know Excel. I've got to understand what the workbook is supposed to do. We've got to be able to check that the formulas in it are right, and the output in it is generating is right by the time I make the changes. So I needed somebody who was very familiar with the workbook and what it did, to be able to be around me at all times, to guide me whenever I needed help, to understand. All right, then the other thing I said was, we will be able to continue work beyond and outside normal office hours up to 9 to 10 p.m. each day, including holidays, should the need to do so arise. Okay, so I was saying that the delivery dates I was giving them, delivery duration I was mentioning, was based on the assumption, all right, that they would make provisions for me to be able to work like that. That's how I'd been working with other clients. They'll provide me space in their facility, and I'll be able to work long hours to achieve the goal. And I had a passion for what I did at that time, so I was willing to work those long hours. I don't work with clients on site anymore, so I guess those such things do not come up. And if they do come up, I'll be working from home anyway. All right, so I also mentioned that I'll strive to finish work as early as possible in order to allow users to carry out test run. The gentleman Ayo was telling me they would love it if I could finish it before the year end, and I'm saying, of course. I mean, why not? I believe that we have more than enough time. This was the 22nd of October. We still had November and December, and I was talking of 30 to 40 working days. So you do the math. I believed that I could do it in that time, or but it was going to be a close call. But it all depended on the kind of support I got, and from what I could see then, it was doable. So I said, yes, we should be able to go get that. And then I told them my fees. Like I said, you use the needs analysis report to kind of wet the ground, prepare the stage for you to make a case for the payment you're going to request. Now, I had studied a lot of what Herman Holt said, and so what I was saying here about the daily rate, you really have to read his book to understand. That's what the Independent Consultant's Guide to Consulting, or something like that. Google his name, you will see the book. It's a very popular book. So in it, he explains how you're supposed to do your thinking regarding getting paid. Of course, there are other alternatives, and I combine it with my knowledge of value pricing. So like I told you, I don't just say, oh, this is how many hours I'm going to work and this is my fee per hour. No. So this daily rate was based on the consideration of a variety of things, and I arrived at it at that time, 2008. Okay, today my daily rate is completely different. If at all I decide to work with you like that. So I said I do not count the number of hours in a day, and the day rate applies to 12 or more hours days as it applies to 8-hour days. So either way, if I spend 12 hours, like I was proposing to be able to stay up to 9 to 10 p.m., it wouldn't matter. They are not going to be paying more, so they will not be thinking I'm staying longer because I want to collect more money. So I did it such a way that it was so easy for the client to agree, because they would see that, oh wow, this guy is actually being reasonable, because they will know that I was actually saving them money in the long run. So the obvious benefit to use that in the long run, I cost you less. You see, that's what I just said now. I've not read the document in years, but I still remember that it's actually what I do even up to today, so that I don't do such projects anymore. So for payment, then on the payment, I said, I mentioned that they will have to pay me on transportation. These are things we discussed, and generally all my clients, they know this. So basically, there are things they cover for me that make it easy for me to focus on giving them, first of all, to agree to give them a much more pocket friendly pricing, and also to be able to focus and do their jobs efficiently and effectively. So I said for work to commence, advance retainer of 1/3 of the total estimated project cost is required. Agreements will need to be reached on a system of progress payments we propose every 2 weeks. Now, you can see that last part. That was what led to my not doing this job for this client. Till today, I do not claim. All right. You can see I put in my new website, Solagbade.com. As of that time, it was actually spontaneousdevelopment.com. If you remember the clip that that started this video, you will see that in there it was spontaneousdevelopment.com that was at the bottom. So this is just the reproduced version I've done, recreated version in Excel that I've just done. I did it yesterday. So I just put in that just to let people know my new website, which I switched to in 2014 after the other website got poached by my former web host. But the point I'm making here is that I didn't do this. I walked away from this job. I walked away because they were not willing to talk to me about giving me my advanced retainer. And like I said in the first video, the video in which I talk about getting called by the oil company, Herman Holt had said that it's a warning signal if a client will not honor this, because you're taking a risk as a person working with a big entity. And now in America, there tends to be more, I would say, more reliability in terms of this. But over here, I have gone through some stuff at the hands of some big companies, 2 of them. All right, and not as big as this particular brand, which is a multinational, but reasonably big. They were national. And I was treated that way by the person that engaged me. And I didn't get a kobo. It was very painful. And I learned my lesson that way, that people can use the position they have in a company, all right, and they use it to take advantage of you, to exploit you. They will not be speaking for the company, they will be speaking for themselves, but they will give you the impression they're speaking for the company. And then they will just pull the plug and you'll be left high and dry. That's what happened to me, and I had vowed it should never happen to me again. So, and then I read Herman Holt's book, and he was saying that, look, as a solo entrepreneur, you need to take care of yourself in this manner. So I just held on to that. And when this gentleman had actually defaulted on some other things we discussed, he had agreed to do certain things, and then he didn't honor them, like I mentioned in the first video. For instance, covering my transportation expenses, even coming over, he asked me to come over, and I told him this is the condition under which I will come over for these reasons. And if you do not know, if you are not willing to honor it, please, I will not come over. He said, no, we'll do it, blah, blah, blah. I reconfirmed it again before taking off to meet with him. And eventually, when I went on that day, he did not honor that agreement. And he was telling me to come and start, and I said, no, it's okay. I will write. I told the person I sent, I will write you, tell you what I want. And I wrote, and I said, if you did not see a response from you guys on this, I'm sorry. I will assume that you do not want me to go further with you on this. And let me tell you, there were some people that were telling me, oh, it's this company. Oh my God, you miss so much money. It's a lie. I disagree. I do not want to work in an environment where I'm not treated with respect and consideration. Herman Holt said it clearly. He said he worked with some big companies, even Ford Motors. He mentioned some others. He said they will come to his house, they would treat him with respect, they would honor the agreements with him, even though he was a solo operation. He was a solo operator. They did not disrespect him or look down on him or treat him the way they wanted. They honored every agreement they had with him. And he said it's a sign of how you're going to get treated when you want to get your payment. The way they treat you from the beginning. So for me, I had seen enough to know that my host was right. And so when this happened, I knew what I needed to do. It was enough for me that they had invited me at all. That showed that what I had was the market needed it. It was just that in the industry in Nigeria, it was clear to me that too many people were they're just not willing to play ball the right way. So for me, I just moved on. I said, I'm going to find a market that will respect me and treat me right. And I found the market, farm business. The farm business industry treats me with respect, and I love it. And then other industries are also kind of able to relate with me, but that's been the main one, and I've stuck with them. And I continue to look at how I can serve them better. So that's it. I hope this is useful. If you need any more, if you need to know more about how to use this document, just reach out to me using the contact details on your screen. Cheers.